And welcome everyone to another episode of Sharing with Shellshock. I am your host, ShellshockPrime, and tonight we have a new episode going on with two returning guests. First things first, Sylverstone Khandr, welcome.
Hello. Welcome, everybody.
Hope you are having a wonderful Friday evening, because today is Friday, not Sunday, but Friday, March 29th, 2024, and I hope you're enjoying yourself today.
I am doing the best.
Awesome. And also joining me, returning from like last week's episode, the last episode that we did, Yoshils, welcome back.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you very much for asking. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Fantastic. Tonight we are going to be discussing our memories in regards to WWE's premiere event, as what they would call the granddaddy of them all, WrestleMania, which WrestleMania had started in 1985, where the first main event was Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Bob Orndorff.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I know for a fact that Jimmy Snuka was in Hulk Hogan's corner and Bob Orton was in Roddy Piper's corner.
Right.
Yep. And it took place in Madison Square Garden. That's where it all began in 1985. But before we start talking about WrestleMania and all things regarding that, remind everybody what type of content do you do, Silver?
Sure thing. Sure. I'm Sylverstone Khandr. I just hit my mic for a second. I do primarily video game content, Nintendo, PC gaming, indie gaming, basically like a lot of the games that you would see and like think that, hey, it's like out there. I mean, I just played that game on the Playdate for all I know, like on this past one day. So like anywhere I can find like a very interesting game, I'll play it. I also do sometimes commentary streams about different things, mostly related around video games. And recently, a little birdie has been saying that I've been getting back to doing art streams, so that's also been on the uptick again. So I do a lot of things on this channel.
Yep, lots of variety. That's what you like to do.
Plenty of variety. You know how it is.
Of course. And Yoshils, remind everybody what type of content do you do?
So I am a variety streamer on Twitch, and I do have my clips on a couple of things like YouTube and TikTok. I play basically anything and everything. Today I played Guitar Hero. The day before I played WWE 2K24. The day before that I played Dragon Ball Z Kakarot.
Nice.
And then I'm going to be playing once we finish Kakarot, because that's the main game at the moment on the stream. We're going to be playing Chrono Trigger. So as you can tell, that's a lot of variety of things. Yep. And then I also do pack openings. I don't do them as much anymore, but I'm planning on doing more in the future. But we shall see, depending on how card games go.
Nice. Again, more variety. Variety is always the spice of life.
Right.
Yep. So now let's get on to the topic at hand. It's WrestleMania memories. With now we're about to head into the 40th show next week.
In Philadelphia.
There have been a total of 39 of the shows prior, so we have a lot to talk about. So we're going to start things off with the first question, and we'll start with you, Silver. What was the first WrestleMania that you remember watching?
So this is like highly disputed for me, because like it's hard for me to sometimes go like remember all the way back to like I do know for sure that it was definitely right as the Attitude Era was kind of kicking off. I want to say that the first I remember watching, I think like I got this through a friend's hookup, because like I didn't really get a chance to go to watch PPVs. Was it Mania 15 that had it was Austin versus Michael with Mike Tyson as the enforcer?
That would be 14.
No, 14. Excuse me. So that was 14. So I do remember watching it, because like all the hype building on like Mike Tyson. Of course, at the time Mike Tyson was basically like the guy in boxing. The most dangerous man on the planet, basically.
Yeah.
So they really like hyped that up, and I really wanted to watch the Mania that year, because I was a huge Stone Cold Steve Austin fan growing up.
Yep.
Granted, I was like very young at the time, but like it was I had a conscious thought as a very very young kid, and seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin, the big mad bald man on the screen, I'm like, yep, I'm like that's a guy I like.
Oh yeah, of course, because he
But
was
like,
he was the guy.
he was the guy, but I'll say that the one that I'm pretty sure I remember watching for real and being like of conscious thought and like just being like the me like bald man guy. I think that would be actually WrestleMania 18, because that was Rock versus Hogan.
Mhm.
Like I remember that very very well. That was like the one I remember like it was like 2002. I want to
Yep.
say, yeah, it was like just before they switched over from WWF to WWE, and it was like kind of the last big hurrah. Like a lot of people consider it like the last big hurrah of the Attitude Era over like the transitional period with WWE. So I remember that the most because that's actually it's also the Mania I've watched the most, like rewatched the most actually.
Yes. And that was a good Mania.
Yeah, very good Mania. Like I will say that the wrong match went on last for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah, the wrong match went on last. There were some interesting moments that in that show altogether. Like a lot of the undercard was really good. I was also like a huge like DDP fan because like I knew him from WCW, so
Yeah.
that was also good. And then of course the hardcore match thing happened all night with Maven and the other guys. Like and back when the 24/7 rule actually meant like something, it was like a lot more fun than the current that we did in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my answer. Like WrestleMania 18 definitely the most one I'm like conscious to remember.
Yeah, WrestleMania 18 was a really good WrestleMania. I've seen that a few times, but admittedly, the first time I've actually watched that one was actually on the network.
Oh, right, the network.
Yeah. What about you, Yoshils? What was your first WrestleMania that you watched?
So this is gonna sound weird, but my first WrestleMania I ever watched was the first WrestleMania I went to.
Really? Oh.
So when I was 4 years old, my family wanted to go see WrestleMania, so we went to Madison Square Garden in '94, and we saw WrestleMania 10. So that was actually my first WrestleMania, my first exposure to wrestling.
Oh, nice.
It took me at a young age, and at that time, it wasn't too rowdy. Because in '94, it didn't get to the Attitude Era, so for me, it was good for me to go because it was like more like kid friendly.
Right.
So my WrestleMania moment was that, but then I also went to WrestleMania 20, which was a shit show. Sorry, I forgot. We
Hey,
forgot.
We can curse. We can curse.
Oh, you can curse. You can totally curse.
Yeah, that was the one with Brock versus
Goldberg.
Goldberg, right?
The referee.
Yep.
Man.
I mean, see, the thing is though, is that I'm still a fan of Goldberg, even though a lot of people don't like him anymore.
That's fair.
And a lot of stuff that he says is questionable, but like I still like him as a wrestler. He's my favorite WCW wrestler.
Yep.
Because back in the time of like 96, 97, 98,
Yep.
when I started watching WrestleMania at home, because my brother used to watch it also with his friends, I would watch it too with them. And we would watch WCW and WWE and ECW. So we were watching all three. Because my brother had friends that were like in the know-how, they were able to get tapes for ECW and we would watch it together too. So it was that. So, but WrestleMania wise, WrestleMania 10, 20, and the one that was in MetLife Stadium, which I think was
37 or
MetLife, I believe it was there was, I think, two of them. There was 29 and I think 30. I don't know if 35 was the one.
Yeah, because like we keep watching the number. I know that.
So mine had to be 29 then, if that's the case, because it was the one with CM Punk and
Undertaker. Yeah.
That's 29.
That's
Yep.
29.
Yeah, so I went to that one. That was the one I went to. So
And Pete, you were right. It was
my WrestleMania experiences.
And Pete was right. It was 35. That was the second one at the MetLife Stadium.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I was like, yeah, those, and then are we going through favorite WrestleManias, or are we saving that?
We will be getting to that later on. Just a matter of the first.
What I'm going to say.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, WrestleMania 10. First time I've ever actually watched that in full was on the network. But years prior, I know for a fact that when WWE would hype up WrestleManias, the first match I watched from that WrestleMania was the ladder match between Shawn Michaels and Scott Hall, aka Razor Ramon.
Yep.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I do.
That was the first ladder match ever.
The very first ladder
Yeah.
match, yeah. That was absolutely a classic. I believe that was WWE's first ever match that got 5 stars from everyone's internet wrestling favorite, Dave Meltzer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so my first WrestleMania, like, because I was watching off and on as a kid, until like 97, 98, when I was watching WCW Nitro and also WWF Raw. Around this time was the build up to WrestleMania 14, which is the same one that Silver was talking about, where Mike Tyson was brought in, and Shawn Michaels hurt his back in the Rumble, which karma for him. But after that, so Tyson joined D-Generation X, and then Austin was feuding with Shawn Michaels because Austin won the Rumble for the second time, and he was challenging for the WWF Championship, which Shawn Michaels had. And what I remember was Shawn Michaels originally did not want to drop the belts to Steve Austin. However, the reason he did is because he knew he was going to get his ass whooped by The Undertaker. The Undertaker was like just sitting down in a gorilla position, waiting for Shawn Michaels to quote unquote do the right thing.
Right.
So the first time I've ever watched this WrestleMania was actually not when it aired live. I actually rented it from Blockbuster, and I remember watching it. And I rented it in 1999, like the summer of that year. Ironically enough, on the week that SmackDown started airing as a weekly series that August. And I remember watching this WrestleMania. I'm like, wow, this is a really good WrestleMania. I was hooked. This was actually like this. It was actually the second WWF pay-per-view I've watched. The first one I've watched was actually a British pay-per-view called Capital Carnage '98, which was not that good, to be honest. But WrestleMania 14 was really good. Because I remember it had like a tag team elimination match where the Legion of Doom was rebranded to Legion of Doom 2000, and they won it. We had Owen Hart versus Triple H. I don't remember if it was for the European Championship or the Intercon. No, it was for the European Championship.
Yeah.
Because the Intercontinental Championship match was The Rock versus Ken Shamrock, which The Rock ended up winning by DQ. But the stipulation was that if The Rock got disqualified, then he would have lost the IC Championship to Ken Shamrock. And they had the DX band, rest in peace, Chris Warren, who performed the DX theme song, as well as Triple H's My Time. They performed DX's song live whenever Triple H and Shawn Michaels had their matches. So that much I do remember. And the only other match that there's 2 other matches I remember. There was the Undertaker versus Kane, their first encounter. And we also had Kane chokeslamming Pete Rose.
All right.
Yes,
I remember that.
That happened there. And also we had Mick Foley and Terry Funk, when Terry Funk was known as Chainsaw Charlie, versus the New Age Outlaws for the Tag Team Championships in a dumpster match. That was a wild match right there. And then when I watched the main event, back then, I absolutely loved the main event. At that time, I thought that it was probably one of the best things I've ever seen. Because that match was just really good. Just having Shawn Michaels and Steve Austin go at it. Yeah, Triple H was there, but as well as China. But like in the end, Mike Tyson screwing over DX, and then Austin becomes the champion. And then when that moment where Jim Ross was like, Stone Cold, Stone Cold, Stone Cold. Like,
no, Stone Cold.
that was actually an ad-lib too. But it lives on for generations.
Oh yeah.
And that was a great WrestleMania. Though looking back, The match was not as good as when I first seen it, but it was still a pretty good match. Overall, a really good WrestleMania. That was my first one. I ended up like renting that, and that was definitely worth the money. Because here's the thing: back then, VHS tapes for WWF were very expensive, like $40 to $50 to get the tapes if you wanted to buy them. So you were better off renting them.
Right.
So yeah, and I did watch that WrestleMania again on the network after so many years, and yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, this pay-per-view is still good, just not as good as I remember it, but there was still some good stuff out of this. Yeah, but so that was my first WrestleMania, 14 from 1998. But I will mention the first WrestleMania that I've actually ordered, and that was 20.
So that's already ordered. Okay.
The first one I've ordered was 20 because that one right there was a stacked card. I remember really liking that WrestleMania back then, and there was still some really good matches, but yeah, the worst match of that card was easily Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg with Austin as the referee. The best moment to come out of that match was Austin stunning both of them on their way out, because both of them were leaving the company at the time.
Correct.
Yeah, and they were both basically booed out of the arena.
Yeah, because originally Brock Lesnar was going to win the match, but when Brock Lesnar was leaving too, they decided to have Goldberg win on his way out.
Yeah, so being there was surreal. I actually do remember a little bit of it because it was very surreal as a kid, because I was like, what's going on, you know? And then you just hear people just like cursing everybody, all them out and everything. That was like, you don't really hear, you hear some of the crowd in the match, but you don't really hear the crowd in the match. Like people were pissed because that should have been a great match. It would have been a short match though. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, so like they didn't do anything, which is because they both didn't like each other to begin with. So they weren't going to work for each other either. That's the other thing too. So
they want to put over the other.
Right, exactly. So because it kept changing back and forth whether or not who was going to win on that situation.
Yeah.
But the Eddie Guerrero match was really good.
It was.
Then, I forget what else was on there. Was Rey Mysterio also on that card? I don't remember.
Let me see. I think he was in that.
Because that was I do vaguely remember that being a good match, but I don't remember.
But like because they opened with John Cena versus the Big Show, and that was fire. Like I think that was probably the most over that people were for John Cena back then, because this is before Cena became Big Match John.
Right.
Yeah. Rey Mysterio, did he have a match? I'm looking right now on the Wikipedia page, and he did. It was a Cruiserweight Open. With
Chavo Guerrero.
And Chavo Guerrero was the one that won that with Chavo Classic. I remember Chavo Classic. That was a trip right there. And honestly, this was really good. Like the only matches I didn't really care too much about were Tori Wilson and Sable versus Miss Jackie and Stacy Keibler and Goldberg and Brock Lesnar. Neither one of them really gravitated towards me, especially Goldberg and Brock Lesnar. But it's like the main event was Chris Benoit versus Triple H and Shawn Michaels. Great match, fantastic. Shame that it can't be acknowledged anymore for the most understandable circumstances. But
yeah, pretty soon.
But like all things considered, but yeah. Overall, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed WrestleMania 20. I remember watching that because that was the first WrestleMania that I remember ordering and watching at home. But that's the thing. Like, we could only afford a few pay-per-views each year, so they ain't cheap. They were not cheap back then.
Yeah, you have to convince your folks to get them. And then for me growing up, because again, I grew up in Jamaica, like I didn't have access to them, period. So I had to like learn from like friends who had or were more well off, or I had to be the guy who would like to watch the shows Monday to see the highlights of the pay-per-view that I obviously couldn't watch last night.
Yeah.
Right.
Like having to go to school the next day, usually after a pay-per-view, and you hear from your friends about like just what happened.
Yeah.
And the one WrestleMania I actually did wanted to see live, my mom said no. Not and not by live I mean in person, but live as in like when it was airing was actually WrestleMania 17. I actually wanted to watch it, but my mom said no.
Dang. That was a big one. That was a big one too.
Which the only bad thing about that was Stone Cold turning heel. That's the only negative thing I have about that. But
yeah, that did happen.
But we'll get more into our favorite WrestleMania as well soon. But yeah, WrestleMania 20 was the first one I've ordered, but WrestleMania 14 was the first one I've ever seen from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right.
Right.
So now we'll move on to our favorite WrestleMania matches and moments. We'll spend a lot more time on this one because there's a lot of moments. We'll start with you, Yoshils.
Okay. So, oh my goodness, I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
So, I'm a very old school kind of guy, so I like a lot of the older matches. But are we talking favorite WrestleMania in general, or are we talking about just the matches?
Both. Like,
okay.
Yeah.
So, I will start with my favorite WrestleMania overall, which is WrestleMania 17.
Yes.
So WrestleMania 17 is a fucking banger because from start to finish, every match is incredible. Rock and Austin, William Regal and Chris Jericho, Kane, Raven, and Big Show in that backstage brawl that they had, and then the part where Raven almost ran over the electric and almost killed the entire WrestleMania.
Oh yeah.
And then Kane, I think threw Raven through the window. That was a crazy spot. So I like that match.
Yep.
And then I'm trying to remember what else was on there. I think it was it was Shane McMahon versus Vince McMahon because it was also the match that they had where Linda McMahon was supposed to be like in a coma.
Yeah.
But then she finally awakened from her coma at that match. And that was huge when that happened at that time. It sounds really weird from the outside, but like, if you really watched like wrestling like I did at that time, like I watched every week at that time because it was so enthralling that like everything was happening all at once. Like that was like a big storyline that happened for like 6 months straight. And then the Dudley Boys match, that was the TLC match, one of the best TLC matches that they had.
Yep.
It was Edge and Christian, Dudley Boys, and
the Hardys.
The Hardy Boys in a TLC match, and that was a crazy match too.
Yep.
That was the one I think Edge spiked himself when he did the spear off the ladder.
Yes. On Jeff Hardy.
Right.
In the air. God, that was a good moment right there.
Yep.
That was a crazy match. And then like I said, Stone Cold versus The Rock was on there, and that was a crazy match too because the ending was unexpected. So there was a lot going on during that pay-per-view. So I find 17 to be the best one in my opinion. There was just a lot going on during that. And that was also the time when WCW and ECW got bought out by WWE.
Yes.
So at that time, that was it. So WWE was the thing to watch. Everyone had to tune in for this WrestleMania because there was nothing else. And it was a banger of a show. They killed it. Yep. So I find that to be the best WrestleMania.
Yep.
But I don't want to focus on just that WrestleMania. So I believe the most famous match, even though a lot of people don't like talking about him, is Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
So like I wasn't born during that time, but watching it when I was a kid, I thought that was like the most amazing thing ever. I mean, nowadays it's like, it was a gimmick, whatever. But I mean, even so, like that was like a big moment in wrestling history for that to happen. Like no one ever did that before.
Yeah.
So that was a huge match. So I think that one was good. WrestleMania 20, like I was mentioning before, Eddie Guerrero's match that he won, that was a big moment because that's before all the other stuff happened with Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was a big moment for that. And then I'm trying to think of other WrestleManias. Well, I'll go with my. I wanted to save this, but my favorite match in general. It's not a good WrestleMania, but it's my favorite match is Stone Cold versus Bret Hart.
Yes.
It's a submission match where the card was not that great, but when this match saved the entire WrestleMania.
It did.
Because, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All I said was it did.
Yeah, it was. It's like what many of my favorite like pictures are from that shot, like in that match, like with Stone Cold in the sharpshooter, and he's just covered in blood. Like because I used to really like ECW, so I like these type of shots, like the gory shots, and like his face is covered in blood. He's screaming, the blood's falling off his teeth. And
it was
in the sharpshooter that he won't let go of because they both hate each other. Yep. He wants to break them in half. And this is how Bret Hart also became a heel, is from this match, because everybody was cheering for Stone Cold and not Bret Hart.
Yep.
That was even bigger of a reason why this match is amazing. And this is like, if I had to give this stars, I would give it a 6 out of 5 because it's an incredible match. If you've never seen it before, do yourself a favor, see this match, because it's incredible from start to finish. They did have a match beforehand, which is really good, but this was the match that cemented it. It was really good. Even the promos they had beforehand, where one of my favorite lines in wrestling was Stone Cold was going, if you put the letter S in front of Hitman, you know exactly what I think of him.
Yep.
That's an amazing line. Amazing.
That was, yes.
It really is, yeah.
So, and they were saying shit like that to each other all the time before the match.
Yep.
It was great.
They had so much heat between each other.
They really did.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just said they really did.
I just, that is my favorite match of all time for anything, like in general. Like, that's my favorite match of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to remember all the matches off the top of my head, but I don't want to take too much. So I'm sure you guys have your moments too. But I'm more of like the Attitude Era kind of person. Yeah. So that's why those type of matches are my favorites. I think there was another one with Mick Foley, Stone Cold, The Rock, and Triple H, and they had like each McMahon in like a corner. That was another match in my opinion too.
It did, but the only thing I remember from that was Stone Cold wasn't in that. It was actually Big Show.
Big Show, right?
Right.
Was that because Shane McMahon had WCW? Was that why? I'm trying to remember.
No, because what I remember was that for whatever reason, I don't remember what led to Shane aligning himself with Big Show, but I know that Stephanie had Triple H, Vince had The Rock, and Linda had Mick Foley. And then I remember that Vince eventually turned on The Rock and embraced Triple H, winning.
Wait, actually, you know what? I did remember another match off the top of my head, but I don't remember if it was... Was it? Oh, no, it wasn't. Okay, never mind. I was going to say, I thought the Hell in a Cell match between Mankind and Undertaker was at WrestleMania.
No.
But it was actually on King of the Ring.
Yeah, so it was a King of the Ring.
Yeah.
All right, so I can't count that. But that's an incredible match, too. But
yes.
We'll keep that on the side for now.
Yeah.
All right, you guys go, because I got to remember all the stuff.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Silver?
Yeah, I've been writing them down like at least like a little bit, so like maybe I can look a little bit of preparation here and there with mine. For favorite matches, like again, for me, like I think like a lot of my favorite matches are like really like the ones that people do talk about when it comes to Mania. Of course, like I was a big fan of the Streak growing up. Like Undertaker was like that dude or something. It was always enticing to see like who would take on the Undertaker that year at Mania, see how they would build up towards who would beat the Streak. So a lot of I think like I remember like in 18 like one of my most watched ones. So I remember watching Taker versus Flair. That to me was a really solid like old school kind of match. One moment that match that I always love a lot is like when there was a moment where Arn Anderson came in and hit the spine buster, like very very cleanly too. It was really really nice. Super duper enthralling, but like again, of course, the best match of that night was The Rock versus Hulk Hogan, because like I think that was like the first time where like the crowd like basically took control of like the match basically, because like obviously like Hogan was supposed to be the heel, because he came with the NWO with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, and Rock was supposed to be the good guy, but no one would dare like try to like boo Hogan, like everyone was like fucking like crazy for Hulk Hogan that back then. And so, like, basically on the fly, like Rock had to be a little more heelish, and Hogan like did all all the usual spots, the leg drop and everything. Like, it was a very like that. That's like one of the matches I remember where like the crowd just really just took over. Like, yeah, I can remember that match, and I remember like two things. Not just the match, like the match stuff was like pretty great, and then the crowd is so into it. They sold for everything, they popped for everything. I think that if that match had not had like the crowd response that it did, it wouldn't have been as like phenomenal as it was.
Yeah.
And you could tell that like afterwards, like the crowd was like spent. Like they had like the women's match afterwards, and then Triple H versus Jericho to the main event, and the crowd from that point on was gone. Like they like Rock Hogan like completely killed like their enthusiasm for, because like to them the show ended with Rock Hogan, and everything else was just like whatever the fuck that is, like that's fine.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. Of course, Rock Austin at 17, that was pretty big. Of course, Stone Cold turning heel was pretty
Mm-hmm.
but I always remember the My Way video package to build up Rock Austin that year. Great stuff. I always love the packages that they do to build up shows. Like I know they did that for there's a couple of comments I remember from My Way for Rock Austin, for the Miz at WrestleMania I think 27. It was Hate Me Now. It had like Nas, like it was like when Miz was a champion, they were really putting him over. That was a really good like one that they did. And then also for Daniel Bryan for Monster by Eminem, and that was for the Mania 30 build. That was also like another like big one I remember loving a lot. Because like that was like peak Yes Movement like years of Daniel Bryan. Because like I remember Peter and I had a friends to watch WrestleMania 28.
28, yes.
Yeah, when he lost to Sheamus in 18 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember we were there just like dumbfounded, like that's it, like, and we like, and throughout the night, the crowd was like incessantly like for Daniel Bryan, like, and the fact that they rode that for at least a good 2 years, because 29 I don't think he was even like on the card, but then 30 of course when they really like pushed for it, that was like when it was like really truly like peak. Yeah, like nuts, like pretty like nuts altogether. But again, looking back at like my list here, like a lot of them here are Undertaker matches because again the streak, Taker Michael 25 and 26. A lot of people say that 25 is the better one. I actually prefer 26 a little bit more because like it was career versus streak. The fact that they ran it back like back to back WrestleManias, because like. Again, another instance 25. The wrong match ended the show because Taker Michaels wasn't the main event. It was fucking Triple H versus Randy Orton, and even though they had a really good build to it, the match that they had was completely tame compared to some people were thinking it was gonna be like a crazy it's like a huge big death feud. Got a big love for WrestleMania. They had a match with basic ass wrestling rules, and we were like, what?
Yeah.
Like again, like sometimes WWE can get the storytelling like right, and then at the climax they just like completely fumble, and I'm like, come on.
Yep.
It hurts for that reason. So like there's those matches. Obviously, Taker Michaels, Rock versus Cena, once in a lifetime. The first one was better. I believe that they shouldn't have done the second time. The second time was a little bit too contrived because, for one, like again, they kind of like the marketing behind the once in a lifetime thing like made sense then because like it was Rock truly coming back to WWE, but also like at that point people were getting tired of Super Cena. People were getting tired of that, and then we lost CM Punk's like long epic reign with the championship to build the Rock story. A lot of people were hoping that it'd be like a triple threat, but we got like Punk Taker out of it, which is really good. Again, another great match. That really was like the better match of 29. And then as we move on into like I guess like the modern era, where Reigns is like main eventing like most of these WrestleManias now. I jotted down here Rollins versus Orton, the one where Orton did the huge like RKO, like where he popped up Rollins for the RKO. Like that was really good.
That was.
That was fun. 32 was 32, which was like the first one at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. Like even though the whole event was like a weird bizarro land, because like a lot of things there didn't really matter like story wise, but like the only thing I remember really liking a lot from was like the Hell in a Cell match with Taker and Shane McMahon.
That WrestleMania like was the first one that I felt where it was starting to get too long.
Yeah, that also too. Like they were starting to really like pack in like a lot of these matches, and like again, it's a huge spectacle show, and but like I this is why I like the fact that they do like 2-night WrestleManias now. Like even though it's funny enough that started with the pandemic actually.
Yeah.
That was really good. See here, I got 32 was like Shane. 33 was like when the Hardys came back for the tag match.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. 34, I have Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey versus Triple H and Stephanie.
Yeah.
Which
Good
I
one.
will always say that was the peak of Ronda Rousey, and then she just kind of just went downhill from there. Because like that was a fun match. If you go back and watch that match, like everyone was into it. You know, Ronda Rousey had all right coming into WWE after her UFC run. And like that match was fun as hell. Like they everyone played into it like pretty well, and also it was kind of them continuing the story because like Ronda Rousey like showed up at like what was it? I think it was Mania 28. Like Rock brought her into the crowd for like for a moment. I don't know. I think it was 31. For a moment like
It was 31.
And, like,
yeah.
And it kind of came full circle. Yeah. Kofi Mania 35, great one.
Yep.
They basically like ran the Dan O'Brien yes move match, but like they did it like with Kofi as like the hero and Bryan as the bad guy. That to me was like one of the more emotional matches of the show for sure, because like at that time Kofi had like been in WWE for like 10 years, never won a championship, but never won like the big one basically.
Mhm.
And like I remember like when he won, like Xavier Woods like in the ring like crying, like he's like, cause like him and Biggie never went together because like they were like they had like worked so hard to get him to that point. And then they brought it like the actual championship, like with the leather strap, because they had the old because Dan Bryan had the wooden one,
Yeah.
which was actually really cool. Like honestly, that was a really cool like title. Like I remember like liking it because like it was like the perfect like heat magnet, because people were like like this title's like weird. It's like weird and like like hippie-ish and like everything. It's like crazy. I think the last couple matches I have like listed here was definitely the Fiend Bray Wyatt versus John Cena. The Firefly Funhouse match.
Oh yeah.
Right.
God, that match, that to me was like when I really was like super into like Bray Wyatt's like new character with the Firefly Funhouse. Even though over time they kind of pushed him too far, and like we had the whole thing happening in like with Rollins and Hell in a Cell, but we don't want to talk about that.
Nah.
Like to me, like because like I was like super into like Bray Wyatt as a character, as like I was like the spooky mysticism characters, especially if they make like some sort of sense,
Mhm.
And Wyatt was a great promo, like rest in peace and all. Like I'm still shocked about that and everything, but like going back to those matches, I'm like, man, like you could tell that like he had like a great mind for like all storytelling and wrestling, and like that match was like really 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 good.
Yeah.
And I think that's it on my list currently. Like I had like there's this like match here for a Bad Bunny and Damien Priest versus Miz and Morrison.
Oh, that was fun.
One of the best like as like outsider celebrity matches, because like Bad Bunny was like super duper like talented and did a freaking destroyer.
Yeah.
That was good. I have a lot again. There's a lot of like great matches out there for sure. If I were to pick like my favorite match of all of these, I would say, because it's really hard not to think about it. I would say that my favorite one probably would have been it's gonna be like a really close tie between Rock Hogan and Taker Michaels 26. Like that was really good. And then of course Firefly Funhouse would be at like a third place. And then my favorite event, a lot of people say 17, but like again, I watched 18 so many times, like. Because like what happened is when I was growing up in Jamaica, like we had like various like cable like channels, stuff like that. Some of these things were like running content that I'm pretty sure that it shouldn't have. But one content member had a bunch of wrestling that was like a lot of the Raws and SmackDowns leading up to 18, and then they would like reloop that and like play it all over again. So I got to like watch the build for 18 and like watch 18 all over again. And so like I can remember like the build up to that and like how like intense it was, and it was like really really fun. So 18 is like my favorite like mania of all time, really.
Yeah, 18 was a really good WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before I get
The
to
last-
go ahead, you're saying
I was gonna say the last one they did before they got the F out.
they did, yes. Before I get to mine, do you have any more you want to add, Yoshils?
There's only one that I do actually remember now that I think about it. I think it was last year. It was Gunther, Sheamus,
And
and
McIntyre.
McIntyre.
Oh yes, that was
wow.
phenomenal. That was a
Right.
great match.
Great match.
So I will preference that like I started back watching wrestling because of friends, because I only watch like the pay-per-views and whenever they watch, like whenever I'm over their house. But I think in this particular moment, my friend was having like a little bit of like a get together. So we
Right.
watched that day of WrestleMania, and I remember watching it. I'm like, God damn, this match is fucking incredible. I mean, I actually like Gunther, and I've met Drew McIntyre, and I actually do like Sheamus as a wrestler. So I was like, I was saying beforehand when I was looking at the card and I was talking to my friends, I was like, this is gonna be the best match on the card, and they're like, nah, 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 nah. It happened to be the best match on the card.
It was best. It was the best match of the card. Like it was.
It
They
got
just went
5
there-
stars too.
They went there just killed each other. Like man, that was. I go back there like my chest like starts hurting like retroactively.
Yep.
It was just incredible. They all it was it was a legit brawl with guys that just literally just beat the shit out of each other the entire time. It was incredible.
Yep.
That's the
Yeah.
kind of I like technical wrestling, but that was a really good match because it was just from start to finish. There was always something going on. There was no one ever resting the entire time. It was amazing.
Yep.
So I'll add that one. But if you notice, that's the only one out of the new stuff that I really liked.
That's fair.
Right.
So I definitely have a lot in regards to my favorite WrestleMania's matches and moments and all that stuff. Let's talk about the matches first. Okay. So I will actually second that match, Yoshils, because that was a really good match. Seeing the three of them, because I remember watching the match at Clash of the Castle between Sheamus and Gunther, and that one was good as it is, really good. But I felt like they stepped it up here, and having Drew McIntyre being a part of this match was a lot better. Because all of them like just completely destroyed each other. In the end, Gunther won. Still, and to this day, as of this podcast recording, still the Intercontinental Champion. But maybe he might lose it to Sami Zayn. We'll see. But yeah, great match. Speaking of Sami Zayn, I'm also gonna give it to his match at. Actually have 2 Sami Zayn matches that I want to actually have here. The first one is where he teamed up with Kevin Owens to take on the Usos last year at WrestleMania, and that was really good. Like, just the fact that they wanted to take those tag team championships away from the Usos, they really wanted it bad, just because they wanted to slowly rip the pieces off of the bloodline, and they managed to do that. Like, both of them. Very hard hitting. There was a lot of spots, a lot of moves put into this match. This was probably like one of the best tag team matches in WrestleMania since like the TLC matches. And as of right now, I believe it was like I think it's the first time that tag team championships main evented at WrestleMania.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
So that was a really good match. The other one, I'm gonna go to WrestleMania 38, and that was and again another Sami Zayn match, but where he fought against Johnny Knoxville. To me, honestly, it's probably the best comedy, like if not the best, one of the best comedy matches I've seen at a WrestleMania. I felt that with what they were going for, considering the background that Johnny Knoxville has since he came from Jackass, I felt that the way that they handled that match, it was well put together. Is it the best WrestleMania match of all time? No, but I had fun. It was a very fun match. It's probably one of the best comedy wrestling matches in WrestleMania history. And I felt that both Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn did a really good job with this one. So yeah, like like Sami Zayn at this point, like if you keep giving him some really good matches, he's definitely going to deliver. And I know for a fact that he's going to deliver at WrestleMania with Gunther, even though obviously that match people wanted Chad Gable instead.
Chad Gable, yeah.
But I think Sami Zayn is going to do a good job there. So other wrestling matches from WrestleMania, if I had to pick some other ones, if I had to pick like an older one, I will also agree with Razor Ramon versus Shawn Michaels in the ladder match. Obviously, like that one was a well-made, well-put-together WrestleMania match, having both of them with a ladder match there were two Intercontinental Championships. Shawn Michaels was suspended but refused to give the belt back, so they decided to do like a battle royale where they had two people. They had two winners. They had Razor Ramon and the model Rick Martel, and then the next week on Raw, they would duke it out to see who would become the new Intercontinental Champion. Razor won. Shawn Michaels returned from his suspension. Both of them talked about how they are the Intercontinental Champion. So they had to sell it at WrestleMania, put both belts up in the air. You got to climb the ladder, get it. And that match went overtime, as well as another match I'm about to get into in just a little bit. But what an amazing match. The other match is also WrestleMania 10, and that is Bret Hart versus Owen Hart, brother against brother. That match was incredible. Seeing the both of them, like the story that they went into this was how Owen felt that Bret was very selfish for not letting Owen get the spotlight on a couple of occasions, like in Survivor Series 93, as well as in the Royal Rumble of 94 in that tag match, that Owen did not even tag, Bret did not tag Owen in during their match against the Quebecers. And then they lost. Then Owen just basically because Bret's leg was hurting, and then Owen attacked the leg, hoping that Bret would not answer the Rumble, which he did, and he won with Lex Luger. But just having this match, the brother versus brother, and then Owen winning was actually a huge surprise. Many people thought that Bret was going to win this and put the kibosh into this feud, but no, Owen won, and the feud kept going. Like, even going as far as SummerSlam 94 that year, where they had an amazing match, but that's another topic for another day. But Bret versus Owen, that match also went overtime, to the point where that match and Razor and Shawn, they caused a match to get canceled. There was a 10-man tag team match, which had 1-2-3 Kid, it had Bob Holly, they had Jeff Jarrett, and many other wrestlers. I think IRS was part of that. They had to cancel that match because the other two matches that I mentioned went too long, and as a result, they ended up having to put that match on like a later Raw. But yeah, WrestleMania 10, those two matches were absolutely wonderful. Another match that I want to bring up, Bryan Danielson, or Daniel Bryan, versus Triple H at WrestleMania 30, where if Bryan won, he would go on to face against Batista and Randy Orton in the main event, which I remember watching that with friends, because that match was fun. That match was great. Like, because you could tell how much Daniel Bryan wanted this win, how he wanted to be in the main event, and he had to get through the Authority in order to get there. And B, the yes movement was so hot. Everybody was just chanting yes all over the place. People showed support. When Daniel Bryan briefly joined the Wyatt family, people rejected that. People kept chanting yes. People kept chanting yes. They wanted him to go back to being Daniel Bryan instead of being Daniel Wyatt. Then after 2 weeks, that happened, and he was probably like the most over guy, because like after CM Punk walked out, like whatever they originally had for CM Punk before he walked out, all of that went to Daniel Bryan. And Bryan took that and he ran with it. And oh man, and I will say that match that he had with Batista and Randy Orton, really good match. But obviously, I would think that Triple H versus Daniel Bryan was definitely, to me, like the match of the night. That was a great match. I do want to get an Undertaker match in here. And I'm gonna go with the the first encounter with Shawn Michaels. That one is a really good match. Like that obviously should have ended WrestleMania 25 instead of Randy Orton versus Triple H. But Austin versus Bret Hart is up there. Austin versus The Rock at WrestleMania 17 is up there, even with the heel turn. Chris Jericho versus Shawn Michaels is up there as one of the best. Where like they both hugged it out at the end, and then like Jericho basically attacked Shawn Michaels. That was funny. And if I had to pick one more match that I wanted to go with, I'm actually gonna go with a match that probably people would not expect me to go with, and it's from the WrestleMania 12. And no, it's not the Iron Man match. That match is overrated. I'm gonna go with Diesel versus The Undertaker. That was actually, I felt that was the first good Undertaker match at WrestleMania, because the other matches he had weren't really all that good. Undertaker versus Jimmy Superfly Snuka, nothing to write home about. Undertaker versus Jake the Snake, it should have been good, but Jake the Snake was just fed up with the WWF at this point, because after that WrestleMania, he quit. So he didn't really put it in his all for that. Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez, the worst Undertaker match at WrestleMania, and what makes it worse is the fact that Undertaker won by disqualification. Because Giant Gonzalez used chloroform, like a towel with chloroform, to weaken the Undertaker, and he got disqualified for that. And then he did not wrestle in 94 because he was injured, but 95, he wrestled King Kong Bundy. Need I say more?
Yeah.
Yeah. But so his match with Diesel was actually like the first good one. And here's a fun fact. Two fun facts. One, had Kevin Nash stayed in the WWF, he would have won. Had Kevin Nash stayed in the WWF, he would have won. That's number one. And two, Undertaker was like, on that day, Undertaker received a couple documents from his wife at the time, and guess what? It was divorce documents. It wasn't Sarah. It was his first wife filed a divorce on that day at WrestleMania 12, and the Undertaker's heart wasn't in it, so he told Kevin Nash to carry him, to just carry him. But yeah, those are my picks for the matches. Overall WrestleManias, I'm gonna go with WrestleMania 17 being like the overall best. WrestleMania 18's up there. WrestleMania 19 is very underrated, but it definitely deserves a shout out, even though I think that Booker T should have beaten Triple H. WrestleMania 24 was really good because that's the one where Shawn Michaels retired Ric Flair. Ric Flair should have just retired at that match. He should have never got out of retirement. But yeah. And Edge main evented WrestleMania that night against Undertaker. Really good match. Another one that I would have to bring up, if anything, for WrestleMania is WrestleMania 10 was really good. WrestleMania 14. And I would probably have to say, if I had to pick another WrestleMania, if I had to pick any of the recent ones, like WrestleMania 30's up there. Last year's was really good, although night one was better than night two, but they're like both nights were really good. So there's a moment I want to bring up real quick, and I'm gonna say this right now. I really like the gimmick battle royal from WrestleMania 17. Seeing all those legends come back and have that over the top battle royal, like you had Bobby the Brain Heenan and Mean Gene Okerlund doing commentary, because it was their first time back, because they came directly from WCW to come back to the WWF. And that was fun. But yeah, like WrestleMania had so many matches, so many moments over the years that we could just spend so much time talking about all day. But there is another topic that I want to bring up. How much does WrestleMania mean to you guys? And Silver, will go with you first.
So WrestleMania, what does it mean to me? Again, all those nicknames they got for WrestleMania, like truly, like is evocative of like like if anything, the aura, the spectacle. Like it is like the show of shows. Like it is like where everyone kind of like is like everyone is like really like watching. And like the way how they've always like built up like Mania has always been like amazing to me, because like whenever we're like the road to WrestleMania, from like January up to till April or March or whatever, like you kind of feel like you're like locked in for like a huge like wonderful storytelling like ride, because like everything from like the Rumble onwards is gonna be like straight up like WrestleMania build, and like usually like nowadays like a lot of shows like don't have like builds for like maybe like a month or so for like whatever pay per view is coming up, but like for WrestleMania that's like at least 3 months of build, so they gotta like weave together like so many different storylines, they gotta weave together like they gotta really like switch up like a lot of characters, they gotta really like just really build up a lot of momentum, because like obviously Mania is like the big show, like big ass stadium shows, ten to thousands, of people who are attending. People are like literally like planning ahead of time to be there. Shall I have a friend who attends WrestleMania every year. And it is truly a spectacle, because like when he goes there and he's like in the front row, and it's like it's a whole bit of like aura and splendor. And to me that I always see like as like Road to WrestleMania is always like the time where like they have like I'd say the best storyline, the best the best like build up, like that's when they really like throw things into full gear. No shit to AEW, but like man, like I feel like for me like WrestleMania has always been like a can't miss event. Even though there are times where like I was like kind of tuning out WWE, I'd always be around for like either the Rumble or Mania, because I'm like those are the big shows. If I can't like keep up with like week by week television, at least by WrestleMania they'll have like the packages that like bring people up to speed with the matches, and then they run them. So like whatever I think Mania, I think of like just like the time where like I can just like there's like a Sunday where I can just like kick back, or I guess now a Saturday where I can kick back and just like be entertained for like a long time, like like so many different matches, so many different like, characters getting to crisscross their storylines, and and in the event of Cody Rhodes, a lot of characters were able to finish their story at WrestleMania.
Yep.
And those are like those moments that just like are just great. Like you see like the literal sea of humanity. Like I don't think you see that for like almost anything. Like sports for sure. But like for wrestling, the fact that wrestling can still like draw, crowds like that still in like the modern age. Like a lot of people would say like like wrestling is like declining, which there's been decline here and there for sure, but it's still entertaining to like a lot of people, and they're still able to fill like massive stadiums and such. So people who still believe in that. Like it's not. Because wrestling is fake, kayfabe and everything like that. It's always great to see like how like wrestling has stood the test of time. Even though there's these are still like men and women who are out there, that's like play fighting, but like they're still acting out like basically the last like vestige of theater, like storytelling, physical combat and everything like that. And people are there, captivated and believing in that. Like these aren't just people who are just throwing people like across the mat and everything. These are like people who are the characters with like past like various different histories that crisscross so much and are actively telling stories in the ring. And for you to be invested in that, like it's better than like a lot of like media out there, because like it's like it goes up in real time. I think that's the thing I love about wrestling the most, is that like a lot of the storytelling is like real time. Like it goes along the same path you do. Like I'm like 30 now, like I'm like almost 31 like this year, and like I've like followed like the story of like guys like like Austin and Taker and Michaels and like a lot of these new guys for the last 5 to 10 years or even longer, and like they've grown up alongside us. So it's to see how those stories develop and like crisscross and like evolve. Like like this time, like say like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, Sami Zayn was like in a whole different story, but now he's like fighting for the championship with Gunther, or in the case of Cody Rhodes was completely out of the company. He was starting his own thing in AEW, and now here he is, 2-time winner of the Royal Rumble, in the main event of the show, facing against, Roman Reigns, and of course, The Rock on the first night. But like, it's gonna be an interesting thing because like I know it's gonna be like a huge payoff, and I'm hoping and I'm praying that he wins.
This is the time.
Like, this is because like I feel like I came out to watching I guess like modern WWE because Cody came back because I'm like because a lot of people were like worried like oh they got screwed this up, oh they're gonna like do that, but like seeing how like they've been building it up for like WrestleMania to WrestleMania because like WrestleMania 38 he comes back, 39 he faces Reigns and loses. Now it's 40. Like this is his third WrestleMania in like 3 years, and he's still like in like up in the upper echelon of like main event caliber, and like things are building up like tremendously, and it's hard to like understate that this is like a really big like weekend coming up for Mania. Like that's what I like about WrestleMania. Like everything is building up so much to the point where like at the show it all just comes to a head and everyone gets to like just go crazy and enjoy the story and see where it goes. And we're all hoping that the story goes in a way that we wanted to go. There have been disappointing WrestleMania matches in the past, but in this case, like everyone's just like all anticipating the same thing, and that's VM's like the essence of WrestleMania, like the grandiose spectacle that everyone's coming to expect.
Yeah.
And that's to me is like the best thing about it all. Like everyone's gonna come together and just enjoy the storytelling.
Yep. Well said. Very good. Mm-hmm. What about you, Yoshils?
So what does WrestleMania mean to me? It's in one simple word. Two words, I should say. Get-togethers. Because anytime I've ever really watched a WrestleMania, it was never by myself. It was either always like with friends or my brother's friends or anything like that. There was a time where I didn't watch wrestling from like maybe like 2009 to 2017.
Yeah.
Or 18. Right. And any time I would watch WrestleMania, like even like I said before, last year I was watching it with friends together. So it's one of those things like I watched day one because I was watching it with friends, and day two I didn't watch it at all because I was with no one. So I was like, who cares? So, it's one of those things where it's like more of like I guess the word would be family I have with it, and it's nice to like talk about like things with people and have certain interest with it. It kind of goes back with like the video game thing that we did last time.
Mm-hmm.
That like it's the same kind of camaraderie that like you have certain interest with everyone, and WrestleMania brings that interest out in everyone at that point. Because everybody really wants to watch WrestleMania. Me personally, nowadays, WrestleMania isn't as important as it used to be because I'm actually more in the Royal Rumble now. Because I was always into the Royal Rumble more than WrestleMania. But the thing is, though, is that with WrestleMania, it's just a little bit of a bigger stage. I've been to WrestleManias. Every time I go there, it's always a nice show. Though, I have to say, when I did go to the one with CM Punk and Undertaker there, it was too long. That was like a 6 to 7 hour show. And that was too long. And that's probably what killed it for me also.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where it's like, I think WrestleMania just brings out the best in wrestling. It's entertainment. It's technical wrestling. It's a spectacle. It's a show. It's a drama. People are happy. People are pissed. You get so much emotion out of it. No one is... Whenever you go to a WrestleMania, never everyone is going to be happy. But when that moment, like for example, like when Stone Cold and Shawn Michaels happened and Stone Cold won the belt, that was a big moment that everybody was screaming about. When Stone Cold was fighting Bret Hart and Bret Hart beat Stone Cold, everybody was in shock. When Stone Cold was fighting The Rock and then Vince McMahon came out and helped Stone Cold instead of The Rock, people were in awe. So it brings out many different emotions, WrestleMania, and I think it's something that even now it is, even though it has, in my opinion, this is my opinion, that it's a little bit watered down compared to what it used to be because there's so much content in it nowadays because they have to spread it out into 2 shows. And that kind of like kills the buzz for it for some people, I'm sure, including myself, because I can't watch wrestling for 2 days straight. That's not me. But I mean, At the same token, back in the day, I used to watch WCW, ECW, and WWF. But then again, I was a kid at the time.
Yeah.
I had all the time in the world, so
Mhm.
it's kind of like a balancing act when it comes to stuff like that. But in the end, WrestleMania is a spectacle. A lot of people do watch it. It is a big deal in the wrestling community when it does happen because basically the Super Bowl, so or the World Series or even the Olympics at that point. I think it might be more popular than. I think it's more popular than not the Super Bowl, but definitely the World Series.
Yeah.
From what I know,
It is.
it's out of control. But back in the day, during the Attitude Era, WrestleMania was so huge; it was more popular than the Super Bowl.
Yes.
It used to get more people to watch. It was incredible at that time. That's why, like for me, and when I was born, like when I grew up and everything like that, WrestleMania was a little bit different. Nowadays, it's a little It's a little bit more watered down now. But back in the day, it was the thing to watch. Everyone used to talk about WrestleMania. Everyone, newscastings, talk shows. People would be calling each other on the phone for it. There would be people that like were trying to order pay-per-views and the phones would be going down. That's how big WrestleMania was at the time, and especially during 17, because that was the only show to watch, and everyone had to order that one. Everyone no one had a choice. There was either watch WrestleMania or be butthurt that everyone else died.
Oh man.
But yeah, that's what WrestleMania means to me nowadays. I know it's not the greatest thing to say, but I mean at the same time, it's a more of a realistic look at things.
Yeah.
But I think, in my opinion, I think the Royal Rumble is more popular now than WrestleMania.
Yep.
I don't know if people believe that, but I believe that because anytime I've ever talked to people, they're like, "Oh, the only time I ever really watched the Royal Rumble because they want to see who comes out and everything." So
Yeah.
but that's about it. That's my point of view on the wrestle. Like, it's not a bad point of view. It's just more of just my nostalgia hit with that when it comes to that stuff. But when you get me to watch it, I'll watch it, and then I'll just like Gunther because Gunther is the man.
Gunther is really good.
The man.
Yep. So for WrestleMania and what it means to me, it means a lot in a sense where you have like all these big matches. They do it. Some of them might have either intertwined with each other, or they may be individual matches that have their own story. Everybody has something going on for themselves. People mainly show up for like one match, but they actually see a whole bunch, and they would actually be interested. Like, oh, I like this guy. I like that guy. So, and there are times where matches will actually steal the show for you, where you're interested in, let's say, like the main event. You want to see what happens in the main event, but you end up coming out liking another match more. Like, for instance, WrestleMania 3, people mainly showed up to watch Hogan and Andre go at it. Coming out of it, the match that they actually talked about more than that was Macho Man Randy Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboats. That match completely stole the show that year, and from what I heard, that WWF was not happy about that. They do not like it when people would steal the show from whoever is the main event is supposed to be. They kind of like relaxed from that for years, but then they kind of went back to that at times every now and then. But you can't really help but just see just what type of matches could be on the show that could potentially be a lot more interesting than the main event. There's like, the thing is, yes, they try to sway you to focus more on one match, but there's so many different matches that you could be watching during this time and throughout the entire show that there's going to be one that stands out for you more than the others, including what would be in the main event. But like, and also the way they built up WrestleMania, having like this big arena and having like a completely different color scheme, a completely different style of what a wrestling show looks compared to everybody else, including what other events WWF or WWE would be doing, and just making it a big spectacle, making it something like it feels like a complete huge grandiose event. Like like you said. The fact that they went all out back in like the 80s and 90s, making these big events, though, I will say like after 94 it kind of started to fizzle out because WrestleMania 11 was not great, 12 was hit and miss, 13 was basically one match that you really wanted to watch, everything else kind of sucked. While 14, in the grand scheme of things, 14 kind of looked like a Raw, but it was a really good WrestleMania because of the matches that they had. But there have been some WrestleManias where it doesn't look the best, but they had the quality of the matches to back it up. Whereas they have like WrestleManias where the quality of how the stage looks, the presentation is amazing, but the match quality is not good. Like I could name WrestleMania 32 as an example of that.
32 is a big example of that.
Like that's probably like the one of the worst. That and another example of like a great presentation of WrestleMania with the worst match quality is WrestleMania 9. Because that was the one.
Was that the Caesar's Palace one?
That's the Caesar's Palace one. Like great presentation. What they were going for, the whole like everybody was wearing a toga, like the whole Roman and Greek thing. I felt that worked well. It's just the match quality was pretty poor. Even the best match of the card, which was Shawn Michaels versus Tatanka, was not really all that great. And that's the one with the worst streak match, The Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez, and also like Bret Hart losing to Yokozuna, only for Yokozuna to lose the WWF Championship to Hulk Hogan. Yeah. Again, an example of great presentation, great theme and everything. Match quality is not great. But honestly, for me, WrestleMania means a lot to me because of the fact that you have an amazing, like huge event that's supposed to be the biggest show of them all, as they say. It's supposed to end all the storylines throughout the year, and then like right after WrestleMania, it's supposed to be the start of the newest storylines that you're going to see. Sometimes even starting new eras. Like sometimes they would start new eras after WrestleMania. Like I could think of how if there was like a transitional point, because I know in 2002, after WrestleMania 18, the week after that, we got a draft, the very first ever WWF draft, where Ric Flair had control of Raw and Vince McMahon had control of SmackDown, and then they start splitting everybody into shows like whatever you're going to see some wrestlers on Raw only, and some wrestlers you're only going to see on SmackDown. And they did that. So that was basically like we were transitioning away from the Attitude Era, away from the invasion angle and everything, into a completely new era for the company at the time. So maybe this coming WrestleMania might actually start a new era after WrestleMania is over. And anything can really happen. But and remember I just said that people say anything can happen in WWE. WrestleMania, a lot can actually happen. So it means a lot to me because of just how amazing and how grand WrestleMania is. And just being able to watch it with other people, whether it's in person or online, you can't take that away. So that's basically me. That's a big one right there because WrestleMania is huge. I only have one question asked for the topics. This one comes from Professor Ice Pick. What do you think was the biggest missed opportunity in terms of a match that should have been in WrestleMania? And that includes matches that happen on other pay-per-views, TV shows, or even house shows.
Like missed opportunities for like WrestleMania. Like I guess like whole matches that didn't happen at the show
or happen elsewhere.
Because they have done that before. Where like they do like stuff like like the week before WrestleMania or whatever. God, that's like a hard question. I can think about it.
Because I got a few, but I'll let you guys. If you guys think of any, let me know.
You go first.
Okay. All right. So, a couple that I could really think of is the fact that I would not have, like, let's go back to WrestleMania 29 for a bit. I would not have done the Twice of a Lifetime. I would not have done that. So let's say if instead of Undertaker versus CM Punk, let's say if CM Punk was the champion in the main event, and if you wanted a missed opportunity, which this match happened in 2012, but I would have preferred this at a WrestleMania, and this would have probably been the culmination of two former Ring of Honor guys who made it big in the WWE. CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan. CM Punk being the WWE champion, Daniel Bryan, the World Heavyweight champion. And then this would have been where the two belts would unify, having both of these guys do it. CM Punk going into it, like, coming off as the best in the world, being with Paul Heyman and being very arrogant and saying, demanding respect for everybody. He was a heel around this time. And then you have Daniel Bryan, who is just turning babyface around this time, and he goes into this and faces off against CM Punk, and then he wins it, unifies both belts. That's what I would have preferred. Like they I believe they did this at Over the Limit 2012, but without the championships. They have both of them wrestle each other, but I figured that they should have wrestled each other at WrestleMania. That's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, again, at the time, again, like, you know, the idea of, like, the indie darlings, you know, like, it was like a big, like, you know, no then, because, like, obviously, like, CM Punk had his followers and Dan Bryan had his followers, but, like, to pay it off, would have been a big ask. But, like, in that era, especially with Vince in charge, I don't think it probably would have happened unless, like, it was, like, enough strings being pulled, you know, behind the scenes to make it work.
Exactly. That's one of the ones I could think of. Another missed opportunity that I could probably think of was and this goes into WrestleMania 17. Considering the fact, even though obviously this would have been a tall order, since days before WrestleMania, WWF bought WCW. So what if they decided to buy out some of those Ted Turner contracts, and they decided, you know what? Instead of Austin turning a heel, the match would end with the top WCW guys coming in and beating the shit out of both Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, and it just ended there. That would have been interesting. That would have been interesting. Everybody, like, that would have been something everybody would have been talking about the next day. People were like, dude, what the fuck just happened?
It's a tough call, because, like, you know, you want them all to be preserved, and, like, especially if the follow up isn't going to be, like, as, like, big as, like, that moment. Again, it's a really tough thing to do.
Yeah.
And, like, I know Yoshils will say something. Like, I was going by saying that, like, the one example I could give is, like, the Nexus, like, how they debuted.
Yeah. But you were gonna say something, Yoshils?
I don't agree with that. Okay. So I think The Rock in an Austin match, it was a necessity only because Stone Cold had to do something different that people didn't expect, especially at a WrestleMania. Because he couldn't do too much because of what was going on with his neck and his ankle.
Yeah.
So that's why they did what they did, because if you noticed, when he became heel, it was more of a comedy act than it was actually wrestling matches. So that's why they did that. So I don't agree with that, because then you would make Stone Cold wrestle even more, and that would make him even more hurt. So I can't say that for sure. I would have said maybe the next night on Monday, what they would have done is that had someone from WCW come out, like Goldberg or Booker T, because he was champion at the end. Or
like maybe Scott Steiner as well.
See, the thing is, though, is that Scott Steiner, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, that was not his moment, only because he doesn't really agree with anything to begin with, and it was too early for that.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that like they got Scott Steiner at the right time. They just didn't know how to use Scott Steiner in general because Scott Steiner didn't like a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they took that very personally. And that was the problem with Scott Steiner. But I just think with something like that, you can't really when it comes to main events, like for example, like Shawn Michaels versus, Ric Flair, that's a great match. There's no way to really go around it.
Yeah.
And even with a Rock versus Austin match, there was no way to really go around that either because, like I said, there were circumstances behind it. So that's why they did what they did. If I wouldn't change any really of the main events that comes with WrestleMania, but if I had to have like a dream, technically the question also goes into like basically a dream match at that point.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of like thinking of like two people that you would really want to see wrestle. So if it was up to me, if you wanted like a new school match, I would say Gunther versus Roman Reigns.
Yes.
Only because Gunther is just like right now he's still built up as like this beast of a monster character. Yes, you can make him lose to Sami Zayn, but everybody likes Sami Zayn anyway, so no one would really hate Gunther anyway at that point.
Yeah.
Like, sure, they're going to hate Gunther during the Sami Zayn thing, but then Gunther could be like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going for the World Heavyweight Championship against, Roman Reigns or Cody Rhodes, whoever, depends who wins. I feel like the Roman Reigns versus Gunther match would be better. Unfortunately, we didn't get a match that we were supposed to get with Gunther, but I mean that's in under circumstances because of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was hoping for years we were going to get that match, and then we were almost there, and then that happened with Brock Lesnar, but we have no choice now. So it's one of those things that's like because that would have been two beasts of monsters that were like fighting each other. So that would have been an amazing match. That's a match that we're never going to get. So I guess that's one of them. Gunther versus Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
Because we're never going to get it. It's just that simple. We're never going to get it. And then the other one I would actually like, if it was Attitude Era, I would have loved Booker T versus Stone Cold. That would have been a great match. Because at that time, Booker T was young and everything like that. And Stone Cold was like the main eventer. Yeah. That would have made Booker T into a main eventer earlier than what he was in his career because of that match. So that would have been another one. I would have liked The Rock versus... Actually, no, I'm sorry. Another match that I would have liked would have been Taz versus William Regal. Because technically, even though Taz is more of a brawler wrestler. He's also a technical wrestler.
Yeah.
So it would have been technical wrestling, which would have been nice because William Regal is one of the most amazing technical wrestlers. And then if we're gonna really get into things, I would have really liked Zack Sabre Jr. versus William Regal.
Oh.
So that would have been one of the best technical wrestling matches we ever would have had.
I would love that.
If we would have had. See, now I'm getting to everything. The WrestleMania thing is getting thrown out the window. Now I'm just talking about just dream matches at this point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My match that I would want at this very moment with the people that we have everywhere, I would love to have Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, Cody Rhodes, and Daniel Bryan all in a Fatal 4-Way match. But like we're never gonna get that. It's gonna be that's impossible.
Honestly, if we were gonna have by that logic, if we were gonna have a dream match as that was this huge spectacle, you know what I would have wanted? Seth Rollins versus Kenny Omega.
That would be so sick.
Because like have it so that Seth Rollins is the WWE company man, and Kenny Omega dominated Japan, dominated AEW, dominated Ring of Honor and so many other places. And let's say if he was brought into WWE, these two, you would have an amazing match between both of them.
That's what I'm saying. See, this is going beyond the WrestleMania thing, and I know it's supposed to be WrestleMania memories, but I mean, listen, we talked about everything we could have talked about at WrestleMania, I think.
Yeah.
But, so this is now just This is just a wrestling podcast. That's it.
Yeah.
Did you, Silverstone? Did you have any dream matches? I'm gonna see now. Now I'm asking the real questions here.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's one I think should have happened, but never happened. The Undertaker versus Sting
Yes.
at WrestleMania.
Oh my god!
You want to know what's the reason why Undertaker's thing never happened? One person did not want it, and it's not the Undertaker. It's not Sting. It's Vince.
Yeah, no, and that son of a bitch.
I can't believe like a match like that. Like they were both in the company at the same time at one point, and they just never went for it. Like we had that annoying ass match at 31 where they had to put in the whole DX NWO stuff in the background, and I'm like,
it was stupid. Like, and
it wasn't incredibly stupid. He lost. Like, didn't he like lose the match too?
Yes, he should have at least won the match. At least give him that. But
like,
my God, like, why?
Like, guys, singing WWE is such a it makes you so mad because like they could have had so many like great matches and they just didn't seize upon the opportunity. Whereas like Sting in AEW was just like way better.
Because the problem was also that he got injured to the point where they decided not to medically clear him. If it wasn't for that, he would have got more matches.
Probably, yeah.
But like, what the main thing also is that you want to know what AJ Styles recently said? He actually called Vince redacted name during an interview.
Damn.
Yep. But another match I would have probably had AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan, which they did have matches, but they should have had one at WrestleMania. Like,
Okay.
that should have been a WrestleMania match.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I got one.
All right.
I have the hardcore match.
Go right ahead.
Just hear me out. John
Yeah.
Moxley,
Mm-hmm.
Tommy Dreamer,
Mm-hmm.
and Nick Gage.
Ooh, extreme.
Honestly, if I would have had to add one more person to that, that's not McFoley. Terry Funk, if he was still around.
Wow,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about people that we could actually use right now.
Okay, in that case, then yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, if Terry Funk was in his prime, okay, but
Yeah.
I mean, now we're exit too much.
All right, but another one I probably would have had, the Legion of Doom versus, if I had to pick one of the best tag teams from the WWE, the Dudley Boys. Like,
Okay.
they were actually going to go that direction. They were actually going to have that match, but then Hawk died.
Right.
Because they decided to have a test match with Rob Van Dam and Kane versus Legion of Doom just to see how things go. And they were still able to go, but the problem is Hawk had his personal issues still. Like, because he was drinking a lot, had a lot of issues with, I believe he had back problems, I'm not sure. Then he passed away in 2 months after that. And yeah, but it could have potentially happened at WrestleMania, like having Legion of Doom, Road Warriors versus the Dudley Boys. That's a dream match that should have happened but didn't. Another dream match that should have happened but didn't. Like, obviously, like we did have Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Scott Hall. Except here's the problem with that match. Austin was not in a good place at the time of that match, and neither was Scott Hall. Scott Hall had a lot of issues with his alcohol addiction at the time. And Austin was having some personal issues with the WWF around this time. And by WrestleMania 18, he was not in a good place. And right after his match at WrestleMania 18, he just bounced. But I feel like that, like, in terms of a missed opportunity, like, for that match, I felt like that match could have been so much better. But the story going behind it was the fact that since NWO was feuding with both Austin and The Rock, the way they build up The Rock and Hogan was great. But the way they build up Austin and Scott Hall, they treated Scott Hall like a joke throughout the whole thing. He barely had any type of offense against Stone Cold. And then when, like, the match happened, the match was okay at best, but it could have been so much better.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I could go on and on all day with missed opportunities, but those are the ones I'm going to go with.
Yeah, I think I'm spent after that though.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
Yep. And but yeah, so we'll wrap it up here, considering the fact that that was the only question that I got from the community this week. So before we sign off, Silver, where can we find you?
Like I said, you can find me anywhere and everywhere as long as you know the name Sylverstone Khandr. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitch, obviously. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Threads. You know, no one really uses Threads anymore.
Yep.
I'm on good places. Like, I'm on practically everything. As long as you look for Silverstone 14 or Silverstone Khandr, you'll find me anywhere and everywhere. So,
All right.
how about that?
Sounds very good. Yoshils, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitch mainly. That's where I actually go ahead and stream. You can find me also on YouTube. YouTube has been very finicky lately with stuff though, unfortunately. So I'm gonna probably just do clips on there.
Yep.
And then TikTok is the one that I upload on daily for clips. So if you want to see me, TikTok, it's the same thing, same name. So you can find me on there also.
Yep. And I do want to thank you both for coming through for this podcast tonight. I really appreciate it.
No problem, man.
Yep.
Thank you.
And for everybody else that's watching or listening in, you could find me at ShellshockPrime on any social media that you could think of, where I do daily streams on Monday through Thursdays with the occasional Sundays. But I've been doing like a couple of Friday streams every now and then whenever I'm home. Like today, like just happened to be a good day for this. But yeah, so that's the WrestleMania Memories episode sharing with Shellshock. The next episode is going to be happening on April 12th, which is going to be Nintendo, our history, and like the history and our experiences. That's basically it. What we're going to be doing then. And Silver, you're going to be a part of that one too.
Yep, I will be back.
Yes. Well, like I'm still trying to confirm the other guests. I'm trying to like make sure that everything's good. But yes. So April 12th will be the next episode of Sharing with Shellshock. That'll be the fifth one for this season so far. And yeah, that's WrestleMania Memories. But thanks as always for tuning in, everybody. So Silver, Yoshils, I'm gonna deafen in just a moment. But again, thank you guys for coming in. And for everybody that's watching, make sure to take care of yourselves, be awesome, stay awesome, tell your loved ones you love them, check them out as always. Fight for lasting peace. I'll see you guys next time. Good night, everybody.
Care.